This program may contain material that is not suitable for all audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Welcome to Straight Talk with DC Hanna. I am Mr. Hanna, and I'm coming to you live from the Corona Apocalypse. You're listening to the voice of the Cigar Resistance and the resident libertarian outlaw. Do you like my sunburn? Went out for a ride this weekend, a little motorcycle time. And you'll notice that there's no mask on my tan line, my burn line. No, my sunglasses are here. My riding bandana was here, but no mask. That's because that's how I roll, baby. Mask free. I am what they called in 1918 a mask slacker. More accurately, I am a libertarian outlaw. Well, you are listening to Straight Talk, and this week is coming right after Memorial Day and right after an appearance that I made on a fantastic nighttime podcast called Liberty Late Night. I'm really glad that Dave and Mary at Liberty Late Night asked me to be on their show. We had a fantastic time. It is available online at YouTube, Liberty Late Night. You can also check out their Facebook page for Liberty Late Night. They're a husband and wife team of libertarians from New York State. And I had a fantastic time. We talked about principles of liberty. We talked about the Rona. We even talked about my favorite chili recipe. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about guns. We talked about whiskey, all the stuff that I love. So it was a fantastic 3 hours. That's right, 3 hours. You know, I used to do 2 hours a night on Straight Talk, and sometimes I was tired afterwards, and sometimes I was wound up. After 3 hours with these great folks, I was ready for another 3 hours, but not on the same night. So check out Liberty Late Night. You can go back and watch that show if you want. If you're not tired of me yet from watching me here, I'm in another venue this week. Memorial Day. The day in which we honor American war dead. Now, how did we honor American war dead this year? Well, for many of us, it was as traditionally done. Went to cemeteries, visited the grave sites of our ancestors who died in combat. But for many others, they celebrated the life and death of those who sacrificed for us by hiding at home or by wearing a mask. What would our ancestors think of that? What would our ancestors think of hiding away? The mask part, I don't wear a mask. You may wear a mask if you choose to. I won't think less of you for doing it. But try to force me to wear a mask, and you and I are going to have some words. Well, as I mentioned, during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, mask wear was mandatory. And in some places, the mask police were given guns. I read an article this week about San Francisco during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, where one of the special mask police, who was just an employee of the health department, was given a gun and told to go out and enforce the mask rules for everybody's benefit. He found a man, and the man didn't have on a mask, and the man refused to put on a mask. And as they say, a scuffle ensued. The masked policeman took out his city-issued firearm and fired a round in the air, which was not sufficient to make the man put a mask on. So he shot him. And in the process, he also shot 2 innocent bystanders who were likely wearing masks. Now, I don't think that made anybody more likely to wear a mask, but it did make the paper. And 102 years later, we're back. We're back in mask country, where the unmasked man is the villain. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, and in future episodes, we'll delve into that a little more in ways both humorous and serious. I don't have a lot of humor in me this week. And so if you're looking for laughs, this might be the time to tune out. But I do want to have a serious discussion with you. As the coronavirus pandemic has gone on, the people who insist that we lock ourselves down, that we go everywhere with a mask, that we all submit to mandatory testing, that businesses stay closed for the good of all, have used again and again the elderly and disabled population in our country. Now, COVID infections cluster in nursing homes and homes for the disabled. They also cluster in places that have subways, that have very tight quarters. But the Rona the pandemic began in nursing homes. In my part of the country here in Johnson and Wyandotte County, Kansas, more than half of the deaths were in nursing homes. Take away those, and the casualties are significantly lower than deaths by auto accident, deaths by any other medical cause, and they're definitely lower than deaths by homicide. Now, Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas are homicide hotspots. Yet, the mayors of those cities are not demanding either that people stay home and stay locked up until they find a vaccine for murder, or telling people that they should only go outside if they're armed. Now, I can get behind that. I do it every day. I never leave the house unarmed, and I do mean never. That is my vaccine against violence. But the city is not saying that, even though the casualty levels are lower. In Kansas City, Missouri, even with the nursing home deaths factored in, the casualty level for COVID is lower than the casualty level for homicide. While people stomp their feet and demand change and try to gnash at their teeth and figure out what they're going to do about this explosion of violence, which is really no different than any other spring or summer in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas. Now we've added the mask. Now, if you're a person intent on doing harm, the mask is your new best friend. You walk into a bank, you walk into a liquor store, you walk into a convenience store, you walk into a parking garage, and people are less likely to be suspicious of you while wearing a mask. It makes your job as a criminal that much easier. You know what's going to happen? Someone who is not intent on violence, but is wearing a mask, is going to be shot and killed by accident by someone who is fearful, even though they are wearing a mask. Because of their fear, not of the Rona, but because of crime. Misidentification of people's intention happens all the time. And it will happen. And then what? Do we get groups of people demanding that people take off their masks? I've been demanding that the whole time. Breathe the fresh air. Let the sunlight hit your face. Stop depriving yourself of oxygen. Maybe it is the depriving the brain of oxygen by mask wearing that is a cause of all this rampant stupidity that we see today. Maybe so. If you take out the nursing home casualties, Rona is less dangerous than many, many other causes of death. Auto accidents, crimes of violence, heart disease, cancer, lung disease, and peanut allergies. I know, we already make adaptation for peanut allergies. Kids at school can't bring a peanut butter cup or a peanut butter sandwich to school. because that kid over there is allergic. And we've got to adapt for the one kid, not require the one kid to adapt to everybody else, but demand everyone else adapt or sacrifice for that one. Well, one of the great arguments in the current COVID discussion, to use the politically correct term, is about nursing home residents. We must do all we can to protect our most vulnerable citizens. Now, our most vulnerable citizens in this case are living in nursing homes. And what is a nursing home? A nursing home is a warehouse for the predeceased. It's the place you park grandma until she dies so that she can be comfortable until her heart stops. It's not the place you give your love. It's not the place you give your care. It's a warehouse for the predeceased. And at the same time, it's a cesspool for every damn disease that comes along. H1N1, clustered in nursing homes. Legionnaire's disease, even though it's called Legionnaire's disease, that's only because the first time anybody saw it was when old American Legion members got together at a hotel and infected each other. The greatest number of deaths from Legionnaire's disease happened, you got it, in nursing homes. The only disease that didn't run rampant through nursing homes was AIDS. And I'll leave you to figure out the obvious reason why that wasn't the case. But a nursing home is a one-way trip to a casket. Accept that, and the fact that the Rona is more prevalent in nursing homes and those people are dying more quickly doesn't seem so bad. I know, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? DC, you are heartless, some of you are saying right now. But I'm not heartless. And that's because nursing homes are not prisons. They're not prison. People don't go to nursing homes for a 5-year or 15-year or life in nursing home stretch. Nursing homes are voluntary. And the person who places a family member in the nursing home does so with full knowledge that grandpa or grandma is going to die there. Once you accept that, how they die is less of a factor. You don't want grandma to die of a disease? Don't send her to the place where the disease is and then abandon her, which is exactly what nursing home care is. Sure, the nursing home staff are wonderful in most cases. The nursing home food is nutritious, more or less. The nursing home social activity, you kid yourself that that's what grandma wants, is to be rolled into a day room next to a table with a jigsaw puzzle that she doesn't care about while Oprah Winfrey or whomever is on TV and she can't change the channel. That's nursing home care. It's barely palatable food. It's the kind of food that they used to serve in the Army back in the 60s. Served up on a plate, spoon-fed to grandma if she needs it. She didn't get a choice. It's somebody treating your grandmother like an infant. Gotta eat your strained peas, grandma. What if grandma doesn't want peas? The dietitian decided that peas is what grandma gets. If you put your loved one in a nursing home, you bought that. You bought all of it. Not just death by the Rona, but maltreatment. You have abandoned your family member. This isn't the government's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not Government Cuomo's fault. A disease goes through a nursing home all the time, every winter. The flu kills tons of nursing home patients. Food poisoning kills them. what they call bed sores kill them. Poor hygiene between staff members and residents kill them. Being in an enclosed environment with other people with chronic illnesses and poor immune systems kill them. And now add coronavirus to the mix. The reason coronavirus kills so many nursing home residents is because they're already immune compromised. They live in the worst possible conditions. The same bed, turned every 4 hours, maybe. Lack of activity. You put them in a wheelchair, you roll them to the day room. A social worker treats them like a child for 2 hours. They get abandoned in a chair to stare off into space for most of the day. They get spoon-fed crap food. And then they're in bed by 7 o'clock. You know that's what it's like. And you should know all of those things compromise the immune system. All of those things make every nursing home resident that much more susceptible to every disease, including COVID-19. A nursing home is not a prison. The people who are there did no wrong. Yet, they have a death sentence, not just from coronavirus, but from 100 other causes. And if you complain about casualty clusters at nursing homes and you have not removed your family member and brought him home to the safety, the government recognized safety of our homes, after all, stay home, stay safe. If you have not done that, the death of your loved one is not the government's fault. It's not the president's fault. It's not the governor's fault. Hell, it's not even the nursing home's fault. It's your fault for not removing your family member now that the environment you thought would be safe is no longer safe. The next time I hear someone or read someone complain about protecting our most vulnerable, guess what they're going to hear from me?
You're listening to Straight Talk with DC Hannah. Talk radio that's strong enough for a man, but I like it too.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with DC Hannah. Well, there's an old saying, the best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry. This was the segment where I was going to provide you with a cigar review. And I chose a cigar that was requested for me to taste by a listener. And that is the JFR Lunatic. The JFR Lunatic is made by Casa Aganorsa, and it is an 8-inch by 80 ring gauge cigar. I've called it the Dominican porn star in the past. Well, I decided this was the time to try it out. So I went down to my favorite cigar shop, Outlaw Cigar Company in Overland Park, Kansas, and I bought one. $10.75. Now that should have been the first indication that this was not going to be a quality tobacco experience. An 8-inch by 80 ring gauge cigar has 3 times the tobacco of an ordinary premium cigar. And if it was good quality, it would retail for much more than $10.75. Well, in the interest of science, I decided to try it out. And it did not go well. First of all, the cigar being so large is very airy. It's not blended, it's not bunched as tightly as a smaller cigar. There's more air channels. And therefore, as the cigar burns, more air mixes with the smoke during combustion. And as you puff on it, you get a larger volume of air overall, but a smaller concentration of smoke. In this case, that wasn't such a bad thing because it tasted like crap. I tried. I swear to God, I tried this cigar. I fired it up and it lit right up. I mean, there's plenty of surface area at the foot of the cigar to fire it up. Made a nice plume of smoke, but the smoke tasted awful. Now, my buddy that I'm smoking with there, he said, it's like a big turd. And I said, the look or the smell? What can you say? He was right. Well, it was an awful cigar. I made it half an inch down the cigar and put it down. But then I figured I had to give it a fair shake. So I relit it and smoked another inch of that 8-inch behemoth that made me feel a little uncomfortable putting my lips around it, if you know what I mean. 1.5 inches into that 8-inch cigar, and damn near an hour had passed. That told me this was going to be a 3-hour, 4-hour smoking experience, and I didn't want to do it. So I put it out. I quit. I'm done. From now on, I will only review good cigars, or cigars I can reasonably assume at the beginning are going to be a good smoking experience. So I did my best, folks. I'm sorry. A little bit ago, we were talking about the mask police back in 1918, and that I believe this is coming around again. The government often goes back to the well. What worked before works now. And so cities and counties, perhaps even states, are going to have contact tracers, investigators, who are going to track down all of the contacts that anybody who tests positive for the Rona have had in the past 14 days. Well, if you think about it, what that means is non-law enforcement personnel doing a law enforcement job, because you're tracking down medical suspects. Now, the Constitution of the United States is clear about our rights. And one of them is the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. It's in the Constitution somewhere, right? So, unreasonable search. Is it reasonable to have someone demand all of your contacts if you've committed no crime? In the interest of public health, there's no public health exception written into the Constitution. Is it the government's place to follow up and order the lockdown, the quarantine of every first-level contact that a person who tests positive or was a first-level contact of someone who tests positive may have seen? And I say may have, because think about this. Look back over the last 2 weeks. Even with the shutdown, you probably went to Walmart or a grocery store or a hardware store. And how many dozen or hundreds of people did you come within bad breath distance of? Those would be first-level contacts. Anyone you came within 6 feet of. And under certain circumstances, the distance is farther than 6 feet. If you went to church, even if you were 30 feet away, you were in the building with them. And we all know that the Rona loves to get people in church. That's why the government, in its infinite wisdom, closed the churches. Right? Right. Well, Rona investigators, they're not required to have a degree, at least in most places. I have seen some jurisdictions that have stated that they would prefer a bachelor's degree or a bachelor or master's in social work. They're going to send social workers out because they know what's best, right? But they're going to send them out to people who aren't going to want to comply. They aren't going to want to be locked up. Which means that the Rona investigators are going to need to get themselves a gun, a state-issued gun. They're untrained, and they either have to carry a gun or have law enforcement escort them on all activities. Which means that those constitutional protections will apply because it's police action. Is this our modern Rona police? Is this our modern mask police? Well, let's look forward in time a little bit. Untrained or poorly trained people sent out to do a dangerous job. They sound like the red shirts from Star Trek. Remember them? The guys from the security team. There'd be a half a dozen red shirt guys. They'd all beam down to a planet. Some salt-sucking monster would get him by the neck, suck all the salt out of him, and kill him. Or whenever something bad was happening on the ship, invariably a bad guy with a phaser would shoot one of the red shirts and he'd die. So for the Rona police, for the COVID contact tracers, are they going to be issued their own red shirt? Do they have to supply their own red shirt? Would they be upset if I went to an interview to be a Rona investigator in my red shirt? You think they'd get the hint? Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to go interview for the damn job. I have a great job, which I love. And I firmly believe that all this contact tracing is a giant load of JFR Lunatic Cigar. Thanks for watching. Come back next week. I'll be in a better mood, I'm sure. I'll find something for us to laugh about. There's always something. And perhaps we'll get a chance together to think. Follow me here on YouTube. Give me a like on Facebook. You're free to contact me, dchannnah.ks@gmail.com. And I will see you next week. For all of you, thanks for watching. Peace out. For my family and my friends, I love you. Stay strong, keep the faith, and I will talk to you soon.